Welcome back to the channel that takes you through the fog with another episode in our countdown series. We're actually at the park for a complete full guide to this year's Halloween Horror Nights for all of you first timers or even veterans who just want to watch a Horror Nights video. So in today's video, we have the full complete guide. Now, this video is not exactly telling you where you should start first, how you should go about it. It's just showing you everything that there is going to be at this year's event, as well as a couple of pro tips that we're going to have here and there just to help you guys out along your way. So with that being said, let's go ahead and head to the entrance and get this video rolling.
Alright guys, so we are now at the entrance of Universal Studios. Under this arch is how you will get in for Halloween Horror Nights. Now for this video, we are going to break it up into a few different sections, and this will be the first section, which is the entrance of the park. So for this year's event, it will be running from September 3rd all the way through Halloween night on October 31st. The event hours for September will be mostly 6:30 p.m. to 1 a.m. other than opening weekend, in which it will be running from 6:30 p.m. to 2 a.m. along with all of October. So with that, let's head on in through the arches.
Now, as we get through the arches, we're going to head up to the front of the park where you guys would scan your ticket to get inside the event. But before we even do that, right behind me is where we have the ticket booths, so you can pick up your Halloween Horror Nights ticket or even purchase any add-ons you want for the day. Now, as you do go through the arches and you see the ticket booths, to the right of the ticket booths, we do have guest services as well as a will call kiosk, which leads us to our first pro tip that we have for today's video.
Now, this pro tip is for anybody who is staying on Universal Resort property during the event. There is a separate hotel guest entrance. If you are staying on Universal Resort property, you can use this entrance and get a shorter wait time to get into the event. It is located next to guest services to the right. Alright, so this is the hotel guest entrance. Now, do keep in mind that it closes at 8 p.m. so if you are coming to the park or re-entering after 8 p.m. you will have to use the regular guest entrance. But now let's head back up to the front where Brian will show you where you will be entering if you are not staying on Universal property.
Now we're up at the front entrance to Universal. This is where you would scan your ticket to get access into Halloween Horror Nights. However, a little bit of advice that we have for you guys is we do plan to be here 2 hours before the event starts. That just gets you a good spot in line because this area does fill up pretty quickly for something that Horror Nights always offers in the beginning of the day, and that is called opening ceremony. Now this is the front entrance of the park that goes all the way through, and the opening ceremonies is something that Horror Nights has planned out when they do like welcome the guest on in. So a couple of scare actors will come out here, do a little performance, and then they'll open the gates officially for the start of Halloween Horror Nights. But with that being said, let's go to scan our ticket and get inside the park.
So now that we are inside of the park, this is the flip side to the front entrance. You will also see where the hotel guest entrance lets in as well. So as you make your way into the park, you are going to come across a fork in the road. Now you can either go to the right or you can go straight. For the purpose of today's video though, we are going to go straight and make our way around the park clockwise. Now this area to the right is going to be part of a stay and scream location, but we will get to that later in the video.
Now as we make our way inside of the park and head to our very first section of the park, we have this broken up into multiple lands. This one's going to be called Production Central. Now as we do walk through, you'll notice we have Minions as well as Shrek. Now these two attractions are open during the regular operation, but however when it's Halloween Horror Nights they will be closed off. And officially in this spot, this is where you're going to get your first taste of anything Halloween Horror Nights related, and that is your first scare zone, which is 30 Years, 30 Fears. Now 30 Years, 30 Fears is going to have a mixture of characters from years past of Halloween Horror Nights to welcome you to the event.
Alright, so you just made it through your first scare zone. Congrats! But now we are coming to another fork in the road where we are going to see our first attraction that is open during the event, which is Rip Ride Rocket, as well as our first house. That first house that we are going to come across is The Bride of Frankenstein Lives, where the entrance for it is going to be right behind me next to that merchandise location. So this is where the entrance for the house will be. Now behind me you do see this big area of grass. This will be where the stanchions and the queue line for the house will be. Now this house was here last year for HHN Light, but if you did not get to go through it this time, it hasn't changed much, so you will get to see The Bride of Frankenstein, Frankenstein's monster, and the Brides of Dracula. And then as you move further down the street, you will come across an aspect of HHN that is super fun and we definitely recommend trying out, which is
the carnival games.
Woo!
Woo! Thank you. As we finish up with the carnival games, we actually get to the end of Production Central, where we have Monsters Cafe. Now in previous years, Monsters Cafe was actually the spot of scare actor dining. However, unfortunately this year Universal has announced that they won't be having it for this year, but they will be open serving some specialty treats. And speaking of some specialty treats, we also have some of these food booths that are going to be popping up throughout the event as well, where you'll see things that you can only get at the food booths and nowhere else in the park. Now that completely sums it all up for Production Central. Now we're getting ready to transfer into our next location, which is the streets of New York. Also, a quick pro tip for you guys: we are in Florida, it is hot. Make sure you bring something to drink water in, or even purchase them at any locations. They do have these refillable cups, and they have some of these vending locations that you can stop off, get water, or any other drink you want to purchase. Now, as we are in New York, we do have 3 houses here, as well as a full scare zone, which is going to be your second one hitting for the day, a tribute store, which we did a tribute store video just recently, and a Stay and Scream location. Now that first house you're going to come across is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is going to be located at the Jimmy Fallon entrance. Now as we get down further in the streets of New York, we do have other locations for the houses. On our left here you're going to have Tooth Fairy, and on the right you're going to have HHN Icons Captured. Now HHN Icons Captured is a brand new house that we're going to be seeing all kinds of icons for this year's event, like Jack and Chance, and where Tooth Fairy was here last year, we were expecting to see a new character make their way into this house as well.
Now, if you watched our tribute store video, you will know that this is where it is located. The tribute store is where you can find tons of HHN merchandise, as well as a beautiful and detailed tribute to Horror Nights and this year's event. As you exit the tribute store, you will be brought right back into the streets of New York and your next scare zone, which is Seek and Destroy. As you enter this zone, you will notice this big stage behind me. This is likely for a show that they will have happen throughout the night. There are also tons of other stages and props throughout this street, likely for other scare actors.
And while you head down the streets of New York through the center of Seek and Destroy, you're actually going to come across our next attraction that will be open, and that is going to be Revenge of the Mummy. Now, a little pro tip for all of you guys: Revenge of the Mummy, as well as the other attractions that will be open, they're going to have a shorter wait time than usual. Usually you see about a 5 to 10 minute wait, so you don't really even have to worry about like waiting in a long line. Those are a lot quicker than you realize, so you'll be able to walk on in and get right on an attraction a lot quicker than the normal operation. And as well as being over here in the streets of New York, we do have our first Stay and Scream location we're coming across, and that's going to be the Finnegan's area. Now the Finnegan's area, not only is it the restaurant, but they do have sometimes some outside locations that they'll be able to fill some of the people in for the holding spots for Stay and Scream.
And then as you exit the Seek and Destroy scare zone, you will come across some food options like Louis for pizza and pasta, and Starbucks if you need a caffeine boost. So while the food at the regular booths like pizza and hot dogs and Louis and Finnegan's are all great places to get food, we highly recommend you trying out some of the HHN specific snacks. We just got this arepa, which is at one of the HHN specific booths. There are different booths all around the park with HHN specific food that will only be available during the event. And as we exit the streets of New York, we do come across another fork in the road. Now we can take a right and you will find another attraction which is open for the event, which is Transformers behind me, but we will be taking a left and continuing to go clockwise around the park to the next area, which is San Francisco.
And now as we enter our next zone, it's going to be the area of San Francisco where we have our next street, and that is going to be Crypt TV. Now, Crypt TV is a mixture and combination of short little clips that they have to create a larger story where they introduce new creatures and characters into this one parallel universe. So you'll come across creatures like Miss Anity, Looksy, and possibly even the Sunny family cult. But honestly, in San Francisco, that's all that we have is just this one street as well as Richter's for dining. But with that, we're going to head to our next zone, and that is going to be London and Diagon Alley.
So now that we have left San Francisco, we are heading into the London area, which is home to King's Cross and Diagon Alley. Now, you won't find anything scary in this area, so if you do need a break from the scares, this is a great place to come. Now, in years past, they did use Diagon Alley for a Stay and Scream location, but we are not sure if they will be utilizing that for this year's event. But we can almost guarantee that they will have the entire area of Diagon Alley open and operational, including the ride Escape from Gringotts.
Now, as we finish up with London, we're actually going to head into our next zone, which is going to be the World Expo. Now, in the area that I'm standing in is kind of a pivotal point where you also have another fork in the road where you can either head on straight into the Simpsons land or take a left, which will lead you to Halloween Nightmare Fuel. Some of the things you're also going to encounter in this zone is going to be 3 haunted houses as well as an attraction called Men in Black. Now, if you continue that clockwise motion, you're actually going to go from Halloween Nightmare Fuel to our most anticipated house for this year, and that is Scary Ohio Horror in the Heartland. And then once you finish up Scary Ohio, you're going to get spat back out in that same location where you come across your next attraction for the day, and that is Men in Black. Now, Men in Black is a fun ride. We do advise you take a few minutes of your day to go in and shoot some aliens, gets you in the spirit of, you know, Halloween, I guess if you want to call it. But once you're finished up with Men in Black, leaving the gift shop, you actually come to the front 2 entrance of the next houses, which is going to be Wicked Growth, Realm of the Pumpkin, and Puppet Theater Captive Audience.
So as we leave the World Expo area, we do reach our next area, which is going to be Simpsons. So here is also another area where you can play carnival games. Now, when we were up at the front, they did tell us that they do have passes, so those can work for both the carnival games up front as well as this area of the park. In this area of the park, they do normally have a roaming chainsaw horde. Now, they don't normally announce this, so we have no way of knowing if they will have that this year or not. We definitely hope so, but who knows? So another Stay and Scream location will be near the Duff Beer Stand. Now, we do also expect that this Stay and Scream location will be busier this year than in years past because it does let out to Kids Zone, which does have 2 highly anticipated houses for this year. So let's head over to Kids Zone and check out where those houses will be. On our way over there, we do have a pro tip for you, and that is that if you like Sam Adams Oktoberfest beer, make sure to get a Dufftoberfest because it is seasonal and they only have it during the fall.
All right, guys, Brian from the future here. I do want to let you guys know that it's going to be raining some of these Horror Night event nights. So that means another pro tip's coming at you guys, and that is to make sure you're prepared for the weather. So whether you go ahead and get like ponchos, rain jackets, or even maybe some umbrellas, just to be prepared, always have like a downloadable weather app so you can check on what's coming into Florida because, like I said, we're in Florida and it is going to rain. All right, guys, welcome to Kids Zone. This is our next section that we're going to be covering, and we really only have 2 houses and nothing more to really talk about except for some food booths, which we will get to in a second. But the 2 houses we're going to talk about is the one on my left, technically my right, but your left, and that is going to be the Haunting of Hill House, which is one that we're really anticipating to be an amazing house this year. I think it's going to be something different than they've done in the past. And then on your right, my left, we're going to have Beetlejuice, which is Mr. Showtime himself. Now, this house was open last year for 2 days when they had HHN Light. We had the chance of going through it, and we are excited to see what it's going to bring for this year's event because it's going to be fully prepared and ready to go for all of you guys. But that's it pretty much for this section here. Let's go ahead and head into the front of Kids Zone so we can show you guys the new food booths they have stationed for this year. Now, this spot directly behind me is not actually a food booth. Instead, it's a permanent location where they're going to have pizza fries for the event. But if we continue walking down this direction, we're going to come to some themed food booths where they have things like Twisted Taters, as well as some other favorited treats that are going to be located for this year's event.
So as we leave Kids Zone, we do come up to our next scare zone and probably one of our most anticipated, which is Gorewood Forest. Gorewood Forest is a location that exists within Terra Cruentus. We did see Terra Cruentus and the Terra Queen back in HHN 15. So that last time we did see the Terror Queen, she sacrificed herself on the last night of HHN and vowed that she would return 15 years later, which she is returning now for HHN 30. So in this scare zone, we do see lots of props as well as lights and triggers for the scare actors. Now, a lot of these props do represent the Gorewood tree, which in Terra Cruentus lore is a tree that exists from the basically dead bodies and bones and blood of those who they sacrifice.
Now, as we're headed out of Gorewood Forest, our next area is going to be Hollywood. However, before we head to the streets of Hollywood, we're not done just yet with Central Park. Now, the Lagoon Show is another show that we'll be having here for Halloween Horror Nights 30. They've had one the first year, which is in HHN 29, which is back in 2019. But this time, it's called Marathon of Mayhem Carnage Factory. Now, we do believe it's going to be pretty much a gathering of things that's going to happen for this year's event. And you're going to have like Jack pretty much leading the show. Not too sure much of information on it, so we'll have to see it on opening night coming in just a few days.
So as we enter our last zone of the park, which is the streets of Hollywood, we do pass one of the most iconic scenes of HHN. Now, this is Mel's Drive-In. During the day, it is operational for guests to buy food. It will be operational during the event as well for guests to buy food, but what's really cool about it during HHN is that they turn off some of the lights in the sign so that it says Mel's Dine-In.
All right, guys, just like Stephanie just said, we are in our final zone of the park, which is the streets of Hollywood, and it contains one scare zone as well as one house. Now, the scare zone, which is actually going to be displayed right behind us, is Lights, Camera, Action, Eddie's Revenge. Now, this scare zone, which is Eddie's Revenge, we're going to actually see one of the icons, Eddie, who is the brother of Jack the Clown himself. Now, we've never really got a chance to see Eddie much, so this is really exciting for all of us to be able to see him in his own scare zone. Now, that is it for all of the scare zones. However, we are not done just yet with this Hollywood zone. Directly behind me, where the Shrek building is going to be located, that's where we have our last and final 10th house, and that is Case Files Unearthed Legendary Truth. Now, this house, we don't necessarily know too much about it because on the HHN website, there wasn't any official description to it, but we do know we're going to be following an investigator named Boris Schuster into some cases leading into New York files. So, don't really know much about it, but it is something we're looking forward to come opening day.
One thing to note for the Legendary Truth house is that this house does exit on the other side of the Shrek building near Rip Ride Rocket. So just keep that in mind. And then as we come back to the front of the park where we started, we did mention earlier about this Hello Kitty zone. This is going to be a Stay and Scream overflow for Finnegan's. So it won't be its own Stay and Scream location, but it will be used as overflow if Finnegan's does get too crowded.
Now, that's completely it for our last zone, which is Hollywood. Now, we're back in the fork where we started before in this video. As you can see, the Universal Studio Store is directly behind me, where actually, I think it's open a little later than the park itself, so you can purchase any merchandise that you need throughout the day. There's going to be the same thing that they have like in the Tribute Store there, except for a couple of merchandise items. And then behind us, we have 30 Years, 30 Fears, which is where we started the day. But if you go ahead and wrap around here with me, you're going to see this is back to the park entrance, where we're going to call it the end of our video and head it out for the day.
All right, so that does it for our full guide to HHN 30. Now, if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, as it does help us a lot to be able to create more content for you guys. We did also just recently start a Patreon account, so if you would like to support us even more and get some awesome behind the scenes and in-park content, we will drop the link for that down below in the description.
So that's pretty much it for us, guys. We cannot wait for Horror Nights to start, as we are just a few days away from opening night, which we will be there and try to get you guys as much as we can covered. No promises, because we're going to be running around excited ourselves, because we've just been looking forward to this day for honestly years now, since last year got canceled. But with that being said, that's it for us today, guys. We cannot wait to catch you in the next video, and we'll catch you guys in the fog. Peace out, guys.